Today I have a story. But not just any story, a story that still haunts me every time I close my eyes. It was just a normal evening at the office, the kind where you stay behind to help out to prove your worth. But that night, my boss did something I never saw coming. He crossed a line that should never be crossed by anyone. What happened next wasn't just shocking, it changed how I see people forever. This isn't about drama. It's about trust power, and what happens when the person you respect the most betrays everything you believed in. Don't skip this, you'll want to hear how it all unraveled. I always thought I knew everything about my sister-in-law. Her kindness, her unwavering support, her perfect marriage to my brother. She was the kind of woman who seemed to have it all together, elegant, graceful, and effortlessly charming. But one evening, while sorting through some old family photos in the attic, I stumbled upon a letter. Its ink faded, but its words still bold and haunting. My hands trembled as I read confession after confession, secrets wrapped in passion and guilt. The letter wasn't addressed to my brother, but to another man, someone I never imagined would be part of her story. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories played in my mind, moments that once seemed innocent but now felt tainted with deception. How could she hide something so explosive for years? The truth threatened to unravel our family, but curiosity burned hotter than betrayal. I knew I had to confront her even if it shattered us all. The morning after discovering the letter, I couldn't shake off the unease that clung to me like a shadow. Every smile she gave, every soft-spoken word seemed tainted with a hidden agenda. At breakfast, she moved effortlessly around the kitchen, humming softly as she poured coffee into my brother's favorite mug. I couldn't help but stare, wondering how she managed to keep up the facade so flawlessly. My brother was oblivious, joking about his workload while she playfully tousled his hair, her laughter chiming through the room. I forced a smile, but my thoughts raced, trying to make sense of the contradictions swirling in my mind. Was I reading too much into it? Could I have misunderstood the letters, meaning desperate for answers? I found myself slipping back into the attic later that day. Determined to search for more clues, digging through dusty boxes and forgotten keepsakes, I unearthed an old journal with her name scrolled on the cover. My hand shook as I opened it, my heart pounding as if warning me to stop. But I couldn't. I needed to know. Page after page revealed glimpses of a life I didn't recognize. Late-night phone calls, secret meetings at a cozy little cafe downtown, and the way she felt alive with someone who wasn't my brother. The way she described his touch, his whispered promises, it left me cold. She had written about how torn she felt, how guilt gnawed at her, but the thrill outweighed the shame. Lost in the whirlwind of emotions, I barely noticed her footsteps approaching. Panic surged as I slammed the journal shut and shoved it back into the box. Just as I straightened up, she appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What are you doing up here?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Oh, just looking for some old family albums," I replied, forcing a casual tone. She didn't seem convinced, but she didn't press further. Instead, she stepped closer, her gaze assessing me with a keen intensity one hadn't noticed before. "I've been meaning to clean up this mess for a while," she said, trying to sound lighthearted. Too many memories cluttered up here. I knotted my throat tight, unsure how to navigate the tension between us. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, but fear held me back. If I was wrong, or even if I wasn't, the fallout would be catastrophic. Instead, I swallowed my apprehension and gave a half-hearted smile. "You know how it is," she continued, her tone softer. "Sometimes we hold on to things that no longer belong." Her words hung heavy in the air, and I couldn't help but wonder if she knew I had found the letter. Was this some twisted way of hinting that she was ready to move on, or was she playing mind games, testing how much I knew I couldn't tell? Before I could respond, she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, her eyes searching mine. "If you ever need to talk about anything, I'm here. You know that, right?" I forced a nod too, overwhelmed to speak. She gave a soft smile and left the attic, leaving me alone with the crushing weight of her secrets. I couldn't fathom how to move forward, whether to expose her or protect my brother from the heartbreak that would undoubtedly follow. One thing was clear: I couldn't keep this to myself forever. The truth was too heavy to bear alone, and I knew I had to make a choice. confront her, confide in my brother, or let the secret die in the dust of the attic. Whatever I decided, it would change everything. The tension between us only grew thicker after that encounter in the attic. I couldn't look at her without feeling the sting of betrayal, and every time my brother kissed her cheek or wrapped an arm around her waist, I felt sick to my stomach. I knew I had to do something, but I couldn't bear the thought of breaking his heart. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, laughter and light conversations filled the air. My brother was telling one of his goofy work stories, making everyone chuckle, and I couldn't help but glance at her. She was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. I couldn't unsee the guilt etched into her expression, even when she thought no one was watching. Suddenly, she excused herself to grab dessert from the kitchen. My brother turned to me, still smiling. "She's been amazing lately, hasn't she? Always making sure everything's perfect." I forced a nod, unable to respond. Guilt clawed at me. How could I let him keep believing this lie? How could I protect him from the truth without tearing their world apart? I excused myself as well, pretending to help with dessert. When I stepped into the kitchen, I found her leaning against the counter, her phone in hand, staring down at the screen with the look of utter defeat. She didn't notice me at first, too lost in whatever message she was reading. When she looked up, her eyes widened and she quickly stuffed her phone in her pocket. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. She hesitated, looking as if she was weighing her words carefully. "Yeah, just tired, I guess." I knew that wasn't the whole truth. Summoning my courage, I took a step closer. "You know secrets have a way of coming out eventually. Whatever you're hiding, it's not going to stay hidden forever." Her face palled, and she looked down, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the counter. "What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath. "The letter, the journal, other man. I know everything." Her eyes widened in panic, and she quickly glanced toward the dining room, making sure my brother hadn't overheard. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked at me with something close to desperation. "Please," she whispered. "You don't understand. It's not what you think." I clenched my jaw, fighting the anger boiling inside me. "Then explain it to me, because from where I stand, you're lying to him, pretending to be this perfect wife while sneaking around with someone else." A "so" escaped her, and she covered her mouth, struggling to compose herself. After a moment, she spoke, her voice strained and raw. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I never meant to hurt him. I love him more than anything. But what," I snapped, unable to contain my frustration. "What excuse could possibly justify this?" She looked at me with tear-filled eyes, the guilt eating away at her. It wasn't about love. It was about feeling alive. I felt trapped, like I'd lost myself somewhere along the way. And he made me feel seen, wanted. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you're saying my brother doesn't make you feel that way?" She shook her head vehemently. "No, that's not it. He's perfect, too perfect. And that's the problem. He never sees my flaws, never questions me, never challenges me. I felt invisible, like I had to keep being this ideal version of myself just to be enough for him. And when someone else saw me, truly saw me, I got swept up in it." I stared at her, trying to make sense of the twisted logic. It didn't excuse her actions, but it gave me a glimpse into the mess of emotions she'd been hiding. "So, what now?" I demanded. "Are you going to keep lying to him? Pretending that nothing's wrong?" She wiped her tears and straightened up, forcing herself to meet my gaze. "No, I can't keep doing this. I'll tell him the truth. He deserves that much. I don't know how to do it without breaking him." My heart twisted painfully, knowing how much this would hurt my brother. But as much as I wanted to protect him from the truth, I knew she was right. He needed honesty, no matter how brutal it was. We returned to the dining room, and she gave me a silent nod, signaling that she would handle it. I didn't know how or when, but at least the lie wouldn't fester any longer. The air felt heavier than ever, and as I sat down, I couldn't help but feel like the ground beneath us was about to shatter. That night I lay awake, listening to muffled voices from their room. I couldn't make out the words, but the pain in my brother's voice was unmistakable. When silence finally fell, it was suffocating. I knew nothing would ever be the same again. In the morning, I found my brother sitting on the porch, his eyes red and swollen from crying. He didn't look at me, just kept staring at the horizon as if searching for answers in the sky. I didn't say anything. There was nothing I could say to make it better. Instead, I just sat beside him, offering silent support as he faced the heartbreaking reality of betrayal. The days that followed felt like walking on broken glass. My brother moved around the house like a ghost, barely speaking, his eyes hollow and haunted. I tried to reach out, but he shut me out completely, refusing to share his pain. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter, now seemed cold and empty, as if the betrayal had sucked all the life out of it. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found him sitting on the porch, his hands trembling as he clutched a faded photograph of them on their wedding day. I hesitated before sitting down next to him, unsure of how to break the silence. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with grief. She said she didn't mean to hurt me. He whispered, his words laced with a bitterness I'd never heard before. Said she felt invisible, like I didn't see her anymore. I swallowed hard, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes love makes us blind to the cracks forming beneath the surface. It doesn't mean you didn't love her enough. He let out a shaky breath, wiping away a stray tear. I thought I was doing everything right, providing caring, loving her the best way I knew how. Was that not enough? His question cut through me, and I reached out, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. You loved her with all you had. Sometimes it's not about being enough. It's about what people choose to see or feel. You did your best. He looked at me, his eyes brimming with pain. I just don't understand. How can love turn into something so ugly? How can someone promise forever and then just betray it like it meant nothing? I didn't have an answer. Love was a cruel paradox, capable of building worlds and shattering them just as easily. Instead of trying to make sense of it, I stayed quiet, letting him pour out his heart. A few days later, I saw her at the grocery store. She looked exhausted, her shoulders hunched as if the weight of her guilt was crushing her. Part of me wanted to confront her, to lash out and make her feel the pain she had inflicted, but I held back, knowing that anger wouldn't heal my brother's wounds. Instead, I approached her cautiously. She turned startled, and her eyes widened with a mixture of fear and remorse. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, barely meeting my gaze. "I never wanted this to happen. I didn't know how to fix it once it started falling apart." My jaw tightened, but I forced myself to remain calm. "He loved you. He gave you everything. And you broke him." She bit her lip, fighting back tears. "I know, and I hate myself for it. I didn't realize how much I needed to be seen. It doesn't excuse what I did, but I never wanted to destroy him." My voice softened despite the ache in my chest. Sometimes needing to feel alive doesn't justify hurting the ones who love us. You need to figure out what you really want and let him heal. She nodded, slowly wiping her eyes. As much as I wanted to hate her, I couldn't. She was just as human as the rest of us. Flawed, desperate for validation, and trapped in the mess she had created. That night, I found my brother still awake, his eyes distant and weary. I sat beside him once again, and he gave me a faint, tired smile. "You don't have to stay with me every night, you know," he mumbled. I shook my head. "I'm not going anywhere." "You're not alone in this." He let out a shaky breath, and for the first time since the betrayal, he leaned into my shoulder, allowing himself to break down. I wrapped an arm around him, holding him together as he fell apart, silently promising that I would stay by his side until he found his strength again. Weeks passed, and life slowly began to regain a semblance of normalcy. My brother started going back to work, immersing himself in routine to keep his mind occupied. Though his laughter was still absent, I noticed small signs of healing, a hint of determination in his gaze, and the way he took on new projects with quiet resolve. One evening, as we sat on the porch, he turned to me, his expression calmer than it had been in months. "She called today," he admitted, his tone steady but cautious. "Wanted to meet and talk, to apologize." I studied his face, searching for hesitation or anger, but found neither. "What did you say?" He sighed, glancing at the horizon. "I told her I wasn't ready, that I needed more time to figure out who I am without her. Maybe someday we'll talk, but not now." Pride swelled within me as I gave him a supportive nod. "You deserve the time to heal. Don't rush it." He smiled faintly, the weight of guilt no longer crushing his spirit. "I think I'm finally starting to accept it. It still hurts, but I'm not letting it define me anymore." As the sun dipped below the horizon, a calm settled between us. I knew he still had a long journey ahead, but seeing his resolve gave me hope. He was reclaiming his life one day at a time, and that was the night everything changed. Not just my job, not just my trust, but my entire view of what it means to feel safe in a space that was supposed to protect me. Some might say I should have spoken up sooner, others might say I overreacted. But unless you've been in that moment alone, blindsided, frozen, you'll never really know what it's like. Was it just a mistake or a calculated abuse of power? That's for you to decide. But for me, it was the moment I chose to never stay silent again. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Follow me so I can stay motivated to bring you more powerful stories, or give me a little encouragement by pressing the number 1.